Yep.
So I'll leave it up to Jane. I wanted to allow Jane to share the work that she's done in schools orienteering. And I wanted to premise it a little bit by imagining that we're all on this kind of mission to give every school student the opportunity to try orienteering, just to see if it's the thing for them. And so you want to spread it as far as possible. And if that is the goal and you're going to help us towards that, then we've all got these regions that we may be taking some responsibility for. And how are you going to efficiently distribute orienteering to all these people? Often we've started with one school and that's easy, and then we've gone to two schools and three schools. But if we think about it the other way around, how are we going to come up with a system that is going to work for 100 schools? Then we might do things a little bit differently to what we currently do. So um, that's the framing that I like. So let's see what Jane thinks of that. And yeah, all yours. I'm keen to hear.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So my story started it's 6 years ago I started doing this. And I did it because we had a great teacher in one of the intermediates, and that intermediate was feeding the Napier Boys High School, which was where my son was going. So I needed a good flow on from that school to have a good team at Napier Boys High School. But she left the region, and we realized within months, the drop in uptake of orienteering in that school had just vanished. And so because I had a bit of spare time, I said to my husband, oh, I think I could do something about that. And so I tried, and I liked it, and I've carried on. But along the way, I've learned what was a waste of time and what made things smoother for the class, a class of 30 kids and everything. So I thought I'd share the positives first, and there's lots of negatives or lots of things I need to improve on. But I'll just share now what I've found so far to be, get the kids whizzing through past their downloads and everything. Okay, so I thought I'd start with the equipment. So we have, in doing the equipment, you'll see the difference between a normal orienteering event and what I call Kiwi Ode. So dumbed down so that the kids understand and pick it up quicker, so that the focus is on the year 4s to the year 6s at least, just learning how to put their map so that it matches the ground. And that's my main focus. So they don't even know how to say the word orienteering. So map reading is it, really. Okay, so we start with, I only take a clear, a start and a finish. So we've already dumped the check. They just need the clear. And then I have a tray of 30, so 3 in this cake tin, there are 3 rows of 10. So that the teacher can see immediately, there are 3 rows of 10, and that's what we need to get back. That having them out in the tray like that means that the kids can see where they've got to put it back without being told, and you can also see how many kids are still out when you've got to quickly get the class back together so that the next class is coming on. So you can see that there's 4 holes left in the tray. So they know that they can all go back to class and they've got 4 students still to come. So I find that quite easy. And then the controls. So the club kindly gave me 20 controls dedicated to Kiwio in Hawke's Bay. And I call these clocks because that's what they are. And that's just the quick way to tell kids I've got 20 clocks around the school. And they are cable tied to the control stands so that when kids are helping me collect, I don't have to worry about them dropping off and having to spend 3 hours figuring out who's just picked up the base station. So they're all They're all cable tied, and I just pull them in and out of the container. 20 of them, it's easy to count. I can ask the kids to count 20 in and out, and so that makes it easy. And this is the new base station 9 version, Hawke's Bay's replacing all our old base stations with 60 of these, and the clocks are on the front. So you'll all be calling them clocks soon, because all the, you know, what used to be on the back, the display is now on the top. So it's a clock. And then the other piece of equipment that I think is Hawke's Bay's best asset, but I'm the only one that knows about it, is the download. Hand battery operated printer and download. So for the first 2 years I used computers, and then I found out about this and wanted to give it a try, so I got it for my birthday, and it's gone 4 years, it's got the same chargeable batteries in them. It works every day for me, and I estimate it prints out about 20,000 downloads a year now. So I really recommend these. So, and they're called different things. I think Michael calls them split printer. I just know them as battery operated ones. And they're really great too, because the kids can just use them. But the other reason I don't use a computer anymore, because when you've got a class of 30 little ones all yelling at you because they all want your attention at the same time, you've just got to send them on and keep the queue going. You don't want more than a queue of 5. Otherwise they start pushing and shoving and everything. You just want to get them through. And so this little printer does enough. They just want the time at the bottom. Some interested kids would like to check that they've done it right, and that's fine. If the queue's not, you know, I can take care of that, or I can hand it over to the teacher and she can help check. But just give them a piece of paper, tell them what the bottom time is, and they're happy with that. You get a new map and go on. All right, so the next thing that's really different is the maps. And I've told everyone before, I'm not a purist. I just want to get it done. And so when I do a map of a school, I make sure it's square on the A4 sheet. So I'm fitting in as much of the school on the whole sheet of paper as possible. So I swivel all the schools around until they're square on the sheet and make it as large as possible with just the school drawing on it. So there is no north lines. Don't even mention north. There's no scale. That's not necessary for 8-year-olds. Most of the time I just put the school name somewhere on the map, but actually that's a hindrance because they all want to turn the map around to read the words. And so it's actually better to leave the school name off. And then, right, so I would say of the 80 school maps I've got, 50% are up to Sprint standard, the IOF Sprint standard. The others are just done as quickly as possible when I need them, do them overnight, and I'll fix them up later. But they're enough for the kids to work with. And then, right, so then when I want to print out a map, I use big circles, big numbers, and really thick lines. So I do, on Condies, your line is usually 0.25 or 0.3 or something. So I use 0.9 for my line thickness, and everything's enlarged because you want to help with all abilities in the class. And so you don't want anybody that's slightly got some sight difficulty to be missing out and not doing stuff accurately. So you just make it as readable as properly. And I also change the color, so it's dead red, bright red. And then when, I'm going to try and show you, when we do the control descriptions, I only have 2 columns. So I've only got, because you've got to squeeze them on the map. So I've only got 2 columns. I haven't got time to read any other instructions or, any other definitions. I just squeeze it on the side where I can. And that's another thing that hinders them, because they want to turn the map around to read the numbers. And you've got to teach them not to. So when I'm doing a course for a class of 30 in a 50-minute session on site at school, I want to split the class up, but they go with their buddies, and teams of 2 or 3, that's fine. But I want to split them up so not all 30 are following each other. So I do 15 maps of a one way of a white. So you can't get whites well around a school with only 20 controls. And the kids know their school anyway. So they're sort of yellowish whites. And I'm even worse than that. I want the lines to be seen. So I don't necessarily put the circles on a feature. I can put them at the side of the field where there's no feature. So I just want the kids to be able to spot the flag where flag. Now, the other thing is, for the year 4s, I put flags on the controls, but they don't need them for year 5s. So for year 5s and 6, I want to make it a little bit harder when we're using the same map. So in a day, I'll have the year 4s do a 1-hour session until lunchtime, and then I'll take the flags off at lunchtime, and the year 5s and 6s would have half-hour sessions, because they just get it faster. And right, so I produce 15 maps with a course going around the outside of the buildings, or the outside is just a simple course that's going around in a loop with about 12 controls on it. Get the kids around the school anyway in a loop, and I'll print 15 one way, and I'll print 15 going in reverse the other way. And for year 4s, they'll have it on A4 sheet. For the year 5s and 6, I'll do the same courses, but they'll be on B5 sheets. And then as a 3rd course, I will do a figure 8 through the school. Same, using basically the same controls, but if I'll add 2 loops, figure 8 through. And I find that enough for a 50-minute session. So they'll do their first course, and it might take them 12 minutes to 25 minutes, depending on how cautious the little girls want to be and correct. And then I'll offer them the reverse course, and they'll halve their time. And now they've got a lot of confidence up, because I say, look how much time you've improved so much. You're now doing it in 8 minutes. And then I'll give them the loop course and tell them how much harder it is now that's on a smaller scale. And they'll do that in less time too, because they've improved so much. It's just phenomenal. But so that the kids can help and the teacher can help, and it's all quick and easy, because you don't want anyone queuing. You want them out there practicing on the field. So what I do, and I twigged onto this about 2 years into it, and so it's a game changer. So I have a B5 laminated coloured board, and I put that into an A4 sheet plastic bag, and then I'll put the loop map in that. I'll do that. I mean, the kids help with this in the morning when I arrive at school, or I do it the night before watching TV. Right, so then I have different colours, all right? So for the year 4s, I'll have an A4 green one and an A4, and for the reverse, I'll have an A4 blue one. And then I'll have their loop B5 yellow one. So I can just ask the kids, what have you done before? What would you like to do now? And they do it by colour. So we don't have to read the map. Which ones go 1, which ones go 2, which ones, you just say, oh, they just know, oh, we did red, we've done red and yellow and I need a green. And actually it's so successful that I can do this contactless during COVID. So I can stand 2 meters away and yell at them and the kids just take off with it. They pick up their own SI card, they clear and check on their own, they clear on their own, and they just grab their colour map on their own and they come back, they get a printout. I do touch the printer and give it to them. Because an adult needs to work the printer, the kids get too muddled and they rip it off wrong and it stops and all that sort of thing. So an adult needs to do the printer. And then, what am I saying? And then the kids just pick up the next map they want. So for instance, I did the second, for the year 4s, it's good to book 2 days, just sleeping overnight. They just pick it up so much better the next day. So I try to encourage a teacher to book me for 2 days for that age group. And so on the second day last week for these year 3 and 4s, who struggled the first day, there's no doubt about that, but on the second day, I just told them I have 4 colour maps. Come to the table and choose whichever one you want to do first and just do as many as you can. And that's the only instruction I needed to give on the second day. And they worked it all out themselves. And then for the year 7 and 8s on site, when I'm asked to an intermediate school, I'm really doing the same thing, but just mopping up the people that haven't met me before or done anything. So when I started, I decided to ask Hastings Intermediate if they would like me, but it was a flop. So I did a lot of classes there for the first year, and then the sports coordinator lost interest because there was no one on his team and stuff like that. So that was a flop. So I happened to come across a teacher who was a mother of a member in Havelock North Primary School. No, sorry, Havelock North Intermediate. So I worked with her and she was keen. And then I realized the best thing for me to do for her to get better was to have the kids that were coming into that intermediate know what orienteering was, so that on day 1, when she said, who wants to join the orienteering team, they all knew. So I left her to do the orienteering team, and I went and offered to do orienteering at the 5 schools that fed Havelock North Intermediate. And so the first year we say, I'd go to Havelock Intermediate and I'd say, who's done orienteering before? And about 4 or 5 people would put up their hands. Now when I say, who's done orienteering before, about 4 or 5 people don't put up their hands. So it's easier for the teacher to say, who wants to be in the orienteering team? Who wants a notice about orienteering? Everybody knows what she's talking about. And really that is the crux of why I can carry on. It's just so the kids understand what orienteering is when they get to year 7 and 8s. And I've repeated that now at 5 intermediates, and it is successful. There's still people in the club that think I'm wasting my time because they're not going on to be club members. But I'm just ignoring that because my aim now is to have all the Hawke's Bay people. So at the moment, the kids go home. I don't do any advertising or anything like that with the kids because they go home, they can't say the word. They can't tell their parents what they've done. they've got these 3 pieces of paper and they're babbling on about something, and a good parent will then Facebook me and say, my son did orienteering last week, what should I do now? But in 30 years' time, when a kid comes home from school, I'm hoping that all the Hawke's Bay parents will go, I loved orienteering, and let's do some more of that. Because I find sometimes now it's 50-50 if the parents know what they're doing. I mean, they say, oh, I remember the clippers, or they say, I found the compass so hard and I got lost, so if they even know what orienteering is, they're not jumping at it. It's really hard to get anybody, the parent. You've got to have a perfect storm. You've got to have the child absolutely bubbling. You've got to have a parent that's been looking for a new sport for their child. And then you've got to have a parent that's, free to take their children to it. And it's very rare that you get all 3 of those combinations. But it happens every 3 months to me. So a child that gets addicted within minutes of orienteering, they've never had it before. And they just, and it's the electronics that I'm certain it's the electronics and the printouts that have those little boys, carrying on. I have seen a child come back shaking. Where's my, give me a new map. I need a new map. He's just addicted. He's never heard of it before. Quite cool. Shall I go on to the negatives? So starting out.
Hang on, can I clarify a few things?
Yeah.
So the sessions that are structured for the schools, you get asked to do 2 days, or that's how long it takes to go through all the kids? Can you just go back to what the school's asking you to do and how that turns into the kind of the session structure and the time that you spend there?
Well, because I've got relationships with the school now, I sort of know, I let the school do what it wants. So you've got some of them that want their kids to learn map reading, and you're doing it for maths. Yeah. Some ask you to come into orienteering because they want cross-country fitness just before the cross-country, and they want the kids to be. And so I actually purpose, if it's a school for cross-country, I'll make them go all around the field. If it's a maths thing, I'll just keep them in the building. So the purpose, and you get to know what the school wants, and when they change a teacher, well, they might have a different objective. So what was the question? Yes. So some schools know where I'm getting at when I say, well, you need 2 days. Sometimes I'll just say, do you want to do a postponement day in case it's wet weather? And they go, okay, we'll do that. And I pencil them in for 2, and they use both because they want to, they're just impromptu. They, oh, let's do this again tomorrow, because that's what the kids do. They go, are you coming every day? So the teachers pick up and go, well, we've still got that free? And I go, yes. And so they say, well, let's do it again. And I have to come home and think up a different, another lot of courses. And that's hard because you've actually done the perfect course the first time. And so it's a mediocre course they're going to get the second day. Other schools just come in because they're doing a cheap camp. And so I go in for it's a year 4 camp. So would you come and do it? Because I don't charge. And so, and then all the kids that 5 and 6 year olds, year 5 and 6, they'll all zoom into me like Peter Pan at 8:30 in the morning. I'm like Peter Pan, and the teachers see it and go, oh, actually we should book the 5 and 6s as well, maybe. Can you come tomorrow? So what else happens?
And they book you for just the 1 hour slots, like how, or the whole day, and they try to go through everyone? How does that work?
Yeah, and they know that I know what's the best schedule for them. So they usually advise. I usually advise for year 4s, it's 50 plus, but then for the second day, it only needs to be 30 minutes for them. But for the year 5s and 6 who have seen me before, we whip them through in half an hour. Yeah, they can do all 3 maps in half an hour with the flags off. They're using the same courses. And so there's no changing the controls in between lunchtime or anything. And actually, so for my good clients, I'll call them, who ask me to come annually, I've got 2 sets of maps. So again, Philippa and I have donated all the maps. So Philippa and I print the maps and we keep them as a class set here in a filing cabinet in alphabetical order. So I can be asked 3 o'clock on Tuesday morning, can you come tomorrow? And I can just pull out the bag and spend my evening putting them in the bags and be ready and go the next morning. So I've got on site here at home, I estimate I've got 14,000 maps in class sets. And that includes the EOTCs and all the reserves that we also go to. Annual, yes.
That's impressive, but there must be a maintenance problem. They're making new buildings and stuff.
Actually, the kids cope. So
They know that building's new.
Yeah, Jacinda's put a new classroom in every school here in the last 3 years, but I'm still using old maps. I had a horrendous day on Monday. I'd been at the school on Friday and the principal had been talking to me and the caretaker, they're all talking to me on Friday afternoon. I get there on Monday and there's this ruddy, great big tanker in the middle of the school sucking out, sewage or something. And it's all buried off. The kids, my course is just completely ruined. But I just put a notice on the control, go around, keep going, go around. And they just went around. It was so hot and it was raining and no complaints. Not everybody just whizzed off doing all 4 maps in half an hour. And yeah, they're quite flexible, the kids. You just have to apologize. I even left it. And yeah, the reason I don't charge is so that if I forget something, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to stress about it. I'm not paying for it. So I can, and I forgot a control on Thursday. I just told them, well, when you get to the sandpit, just keep going. It's not there. Keep going. And we put a chair out and said, number 103 is missing. Keep going. And all day, and they all, yeah. The kids are great. The teachers, some competitive teachers, they like it to be accurate and they want us to check. They want us to check all the time. But for the interested kids and teachers like that, I go, okay, we'll just stand there and check it. You can check it yourself. And they do, and then they give up. So that's right.
Okay, Jane, on to the negatives. What goes wrong?
It's not so much that, it's really the shit that I get from the committee, have done for ages. So you've got to act as you've got to consider it as a business, in my view, and you are going to lose some equipment now and again. And yes, I mean, the person that feels the worst is me, but you don't get the SI cards back all of the time. So 6 years ago, I started with 84 and now I'm down to 70. So what's that? I've lost 12 in 6 years or something like that. But the grief I've had from the committee has been awful. And bearing in mind, these have all, depreciated to nothing years ago. But anyway, and occasionally you'll lose a control. So I don't do this in high schools because the high school boys know what they're doing and they move the controls. And so you'd have to chain them to have a whole day session. You'd have to chain everything. But thought I'd help a friend out the other day, and so I did go to a college and I lost one. And they just can't find it. So I don't know what the boys did with it.
So the
I've
committee
lost-
wouldn't be amenable to give me $500 a year and I'll produce 1,000 orienteering experiences. So not interested in that as a proposition?
Well, they don't. Well, remember that I've been Philip was the president for 6 years and then I took over. So they would do anything. The committee will do anything I offer, but
It's funny though, you put up a proposal to, in the old days, an ad in the newspaper. People will say, yeah, we'll do that. Or we'll buy a generator. Yeah, we'll do that. But I will give you 1,000 orienteering experiences. Why wouldn't they see that as worth purchasing?
Yes, I don't push joining at the.
No, we're not after members. We're after enjoyable experiences, aren't we?
Yes, for all abilities, and it is good that everybody can join it, even the special needs. They just spend the 50 minutes filling up their SI cards wherever they want to, come back for a printout, and you just say positive things like,
Yeah.
oh, you found a lot, go and find some
Yeah.
more. And they're just joining in and they love it.
Yep, carry on
Um,
with the negatives. I mean,
Sure.
I think we've all had some of those feelings that this isn't directly resulting in an orienteer.
Yeah. So the time consuming of putting them in the plastic bag, I don't see any other person in the planet doing it actually. So I can't quite work out how to improve that.
But it's very simple.
Yeah.
So it's elegant.
I wouldn't want to go backwards. I wouldn't want to dump it. But and I'm feeling a lot better now that people like in Hawke's Bay, we now have a recycle for the soft plastics. So I think the plastic bags last about a year. So they get, at this time of year, they get a bit, grubby, but they're quite good really. But yes, I do have a lot of plastic bags to go to the recycle. And that's about it. I mean, I'm quite excited. I can't think of any other negatives at the moment because I'm quite excited. I've been asked two new things this week that well, the Robinsons have already been doing for years, I know. But so I was asked by an area school to do a complete year 0 to year 13 plan for next year. And they'll do it for a whole week. And then I was also rung out of the blue to do, because the ultimate is to have this happen in school time. Because at the moment I'm still doing out of school, competitions, after school competitions. So I got rung up the other day and asked to do a contract for in school time next year in term 3. So I will get some money next year to pay for these maps. Pay us back for these maps.
Well,
But-
schools ought to pay, you would think.
Because of the cardboard on the back, because you're putting the cardboard on the back, you only print the map once. I use one today that's 6 years old. So it's been used for six times over the 6 years, and they're good as gold. Yeah, there's not much change in a school mostly. Just at the moment, I can't think of any more negatives.
Yeah, so there are a few things that I was probably missed them earlier, so sorry if you have to repeat. So you have the plastic badging and you put like the card and the map in the bag. That's the
Yes.
setup, right? Okay, right. So the time consuming bit is putting that in the day before and then you take it out again
Yes.
that night, right? Because you
And
don't
if
have
it's-
14,000 plastic bags.
No, only I think, what is it, 15 and 15 and 30.
Yeah.
But if they get wet, they've all got to hang on my washing line.
Oh yeah.
And um,
And you mentioned this contract will allow you to do things in school time. So what was everything you're saying before that? What time was that done in?
so that's in, yes, they were school sessions in school time.
Okay.
No, this is a competition.
Oh,
Competition.
okay. Yep.
So in a local park, and I'll set up for a couple of days. The pre-registration, so we'll find out how many days I need to book the park for to get everybody through that's interested. And
And how are they picking that?
it's like,
Like, is that like as like an Auckland has these zone days and then like a champion of champions zone, like school competition, and they have a go days. So like, where does that kind of fit between that spectrum?
it'll probably be a have a go day.
Yeah.
So it'll be sort of like we'll definitely do the TV screens and everything, and they'll have a ultimate printout and everything. So I run those as in the intermediates now that we run inter-house competitions, and the kids actually the technical team, kids doing in the technical group, they come and help me, not the orienteers, the technical group. So they run the computer and the TV and and I just run the orienteering bit. And again, I use coloured maps. So 4 different courses, and you just rock up and pick up your coloured map, and then we'll get sorted for the next competition. So yeah. So the negative, the difficulty is now if you try to do that if you tried to do the in-school Kiwio sessions paid, I don't charge, because if it's a wet day, I don't want the hassle of giving the money back. If I don't take equipment, doesn't turn up properly, or I just don't want the stress. So it's just easier for me to just go with the flow, offer my hours. But I don't know how to transcend into a little business. If somebody else was interested in a business anywhere in New Zealand, how that would go, because you get so many wet days that postponed, and it's just mucky. And so you're just deflated, because now you're not getting the income you thought you were going to get. And it's easy for me because I don't have that. I never was going to get an income, so it doesn't matter if it's a wet day. I go, yay, I got a day off to do something else.
Yeah, we need to solve that though somehow. There aren't enough Janes or retired people or what have you. So we need to find a solution to that. And maybe if there wasn't a Jane, then remember Darren working with schools in Auckland? So he said, I'm going to charge you X, and he got customers.
Yeah, he worked with about 6 intermediates, and he charged $1 per student per day, I think, if I remember correctly.
I think this is where we do need to have a topic discussion about this, because I have just been having this kōrero today with the intermediate, and Rolf and I are just discussing it as we develop the web page for taupo orienteering around schools. So schools have got a place to get information for what they can get in taupo. Because we've been inundated. We had an article written at the start of the term, and it's been nuts. And I did that thing through Kiwi Sport, which is not funded at all. Like, it was, again, I'm a stay-at-home mum, so I was able to give the time. Kiwi Sport is funded by grants in our community. We applied for a grant to get some of the maps made. I didn't, I think I claimed $100 for petrol from that grant. Okay. However, this term, we have run the schools event. So that was, we charged kids $2.50, and that was still through. So all the schools I've been to in term 2 through Kiwi Sport, We charged anyone that came $2.50, and that was not a problem. But then the following week, we got called by a school who didn't come for COVID reasons, but wanted their own event. So I just redid the maps, and the teacher turned up and goes, "Liv, I cannot believe it's $2.50. You need to be charging us $5 for a half-day experience because you guys have been here since 8 setting up. You'll be here till 12, and $2.50 for this." And we did the printing ourselves. They're using the Sport Ident for this, but they don't use Sport Ident for Kiwi Sport. I hope to be at Jane's. I think the club will do what Jane does in a year or two, but at the moment I just use clip cards at school. And then I've been at intermediate who are not involved at all with Kiwi Sport, and they have turned around, and for every kid I've seen, they've given me $2.50, and that all goes to our junior development fund and at the Taupo Orienteering Club. So I have not been personally paid, but I think we need to know. I think we should try and discuss like where the lines sit, so then it's consistent throughout New Zealand to a point. Some of you guys have way more gear than our club does, and so I can understand if you were going to pay more maybe for kids. At the same time, they're all kids and we want all of them to do it, but schools do have funds for some of this stuff, and I think there has to be a discussion about, I think, so that it's consistent across the country as to what schools could expect to be paying at school level, at what schools could expect to pay for a particular kind of experience. And definitely in Taupo, it just seems like it's gaining momentum regarding schools contacting us again after the Kiwi Sport Taster to have these special days run for them. And that's great, but yeah, it's a lot, you know. And I just wonder, are we better to discuss that so that, yeah, I mean, it's like intermediate printed all of their maps. They actually laminated them before I could get into the school, Jane, because I had all my bags and my card ready. Like that was, Jane is my idol, but I had all my bags and my cards ready, and I turned up to school and she's like, "Look, Liv, I've laminated them all." And I was like, "Oh, no." And especially because when it rained, which it did, and did the kids care? They did not on Monday. They were saturated, which probably not the best thing at the moment, but anyway, and all the laminate pulled apart. It didn't even save them. Like the bags are much better. But yeah, I think that's another discussion, Jean.
Yeah,
So-
that's right. We'll definitely queue that up maybe for our next talk or maybe later. Yeah, that's definitely an important discussion to have. Jane?
So I forgot to say that I'm an independent contractor with this. I'm outside of the club. There's this merge area. So the clubs supported me with equipment. Now this all happened, remember 6 years ago, we started having the thing with health and safety and all that. Can you remember that all happened about? Anyway, so the club just bolted away and said, no, especially when I'm doing the EOTC. They didn't, I know it's all, anyway, I was doing it outside the club, so the club didn't have any risk at all. But I don't think anybody knows that. I'm the only one that's still got this, because I actually promote the club as much as I can when I'm doing it. I go on my club top and I take the caravan today. I took the caravan today, so everybody sees the Hawke's Bay caravan and everything. So they can't see a distinction between me outside of the club, especially when I'm president as well, treasurer. They just can't see the distinction. But I actually know that I'm still not employed by the club. I'm not doing this on behalf of the club. I'm an independent contractor. And so when they ask for the COVID policy, I'm doing it as Jane Harries, wearing a mask. Yes. So that's just a blurred area that the club needs to deal with eventually if they were going to employ somebody else, if they were going to contract someone 40 years younger. Oh, so one of the negatives is, I'm the wrong person. I always said I'm not the good person. I'm not the best person to be the face of Hawke's Bay. I actually don't get on very well with kids. And I struggle to do the positive when I give away the printout. I try and, I'm getting better at showing the positive side of things of it, but I'm quite abrupt when I get tired of stuff. So I'm actually the wrong person to be doing this, but I'm still doing it because nobody else is. So
Yeah, I know. The ideal face is somebody in their 20s, isn't it? A cool person, pretty or handsome, you know, that kind of thing. And you don't want, I'm conscious that I'm too old to go into schools, and I'm wondering just what the even the secondary school kids think of me. But beggars can't be choosers. What you're providing is a simple, doable thing. You're not trespassing on the curriculum. You've just got something that works. The kids enjoy it. The teachers tomorrow will relate that to some area of the curriculum that you have no idea about, and it will be valuable. And you've given them a fun experience. And I think that's a tremendous result. And you don't have to have that personal face. You've given them fun.
and the reason why I print the maps, we used to, sometimes I used to say, yeah, you can print the maps, and they just come out all faint and can't see that. And I go, oh no, I'm not doing that again. So I just print them to my standard at home now. That's why I keep them. But other people think I'm mad. They go, of course the school can print the maps. But I'd have to drive there and say, I want red lines like this. And I just don't.
Red's interesting. So in orienteering, we're very conscious about colourblind people, and so we don't use red. But whatever, that may compromise it for the majority.
It's a thick red, bright red, thick. So
Yeah, I'm all for thick lines, and being visually challenged myself, I bump up the thickness of things for Rogaines, for example.
Michael, I'm wondering about in a school environment, though, whether or not the red's fine for colourblind, because whenever we've got about 2 or 3 people in our club, and basically they say that it's only when it's on the green that they can't see the purple red, and it's that they can see that there's a dark and a light. So it might not be a bigger issue in a school environment as long as there's not a lot of green on the map.
It can't be a huge problem, I suppose, because otherwise there'd be grizzles around the results board all the time, and there isn't, is there?
And I haven't even told you my spiel. So the spiel has been honed over the last 6 years, and it's just the introduction. It's got down to 4 minutes, and you tell them about trees being green dots as if a bird's looking down. So what does a bird see from above? What color would a tree be? What shape would it be? Just the buildings. And then I talk about summer grass, and on a school map, if they've got a blue rectangle, that's the school pool, and it's really good to use for figuring out how to turn your map. Point your map. So you don't read a map like a book, you read it flat and have it matching where the pool is. And for the year 4s, I'll give out the maps first before we start them. So they'll all be sitting down and they'll get the A4 sheet map, and then I'll say, right, all point the map the right way, and then put your finger on the triangle. Now, will you and your buddy work out which way you've got to go for number 1, point which way you're going to go to number 1, and everybody that does it right gets to start, and then the others, we do it again for them. Because they're not listening. After 2 minutes, they're not listening. They think they know how to do it, and they're just going to go. So it's learn, and then I just say, okay, well, we'll all give it a go, and if you muck up, come back and clear. And 50% of the class will muck up because they'll follow each other. And then they'll guess, they'll realize they're doing this wrong, and they will come back and start again, and they're going to do it right this time, because they've realized they're doing it wrong. So you don't take much of an introduction, and you try and keep the cues short. That's the key to it. Keep them going through.
Cool. Well, that's a lot. I've got a whole bunch of notes down, and I'll just run them past you, Jane, probably tomorrow, just to check that I haven't made any mistakes there. But huge thanks for sharing all that. I mean, we were just getting bombarded for an hour there. There's, I'm sure, more that we could ask, but I think that's more than enough for now. I am keen to move on to some of those points that you've also had challenges with in the next one. So yeah, thanks a lot, Jane, for bringing us through all of that. Yeah, I really appreciate it, and I assume others did as well. Yeah, some thumbs up. Cool. So I've got a recording
thanks.
and some notes, and we'll get those touched up just to make sure I understand you correctly. And yeah, we'll share that out. I mean, that's just fantastic work that you've done, and very inspiring. So yeah, thanks for sharing all that.
You're welcome.
Cool. I've got to go, and maybe some of you do as well. So the last thing I wanted to say is the next meeting is not going to be, we're going to miss January. I'm just going to keep you consistent with the schools, sorry, with the coaching group, which was scheduled for the 1st of January. So we decided that that was unlikely to happen, and we'll do the same for this group as well. So yeah, see you guys in February for the next catch up. All right, see ya.